It's all about the cops, isn't it? Or maybe, Don, you could get out of your intellectual prison you're in. Maybe you would just listen to Black Lives Matter in their own words. This isn't about the police. That's a distraction to keep you distracted from the failures of far-left ideology in the city while they destroy it and rebuild it in Marxist fashion. So here's Don Lemon, the dreadful Don Lemon on CNN, one of the 10 dumbest people in media by far, who I've had it out with quite a bit, who doesn't know anything, so when he gets caught spouting his ignorance, he talks over his guests. He has Terry Crews on. Remember, Terry Crews, who dared to suggest we should judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. My gosh. So rather than Don Lemon letting Terry Crews talk, Don Lemon decides it's time to spew propaganda about Black Lives Matter and completely talks over the guest on his show. Should go on Fox, Terry Crews, where he'd actually get a fair shake. Listen to this dreadful segment by the hapless Don Lemon, one of the dumbest guys in media.
The Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality. If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not an all-encompassing. So if you're talking about, if someone started a movement that said, cancer matters, and then someone comes in and said, why aren't you talking about HIV? It's not the same thing. We're talking about cancer. So the Black Lives Matter movement is about police brutality and injustice in that manner, not about what's happening in black neighborhoods. There are people who are working on that issue, and if you want to start that issue, why don't you start it? Do you understand what I'm saying?
But when you look at the organization, police brutality is not the only thing they're talking about.
I know that, but I agree, but that's not what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, Terry. Black Lives Matter is about police brutality and about criminal justice. It's not about what happens in communities when it comes to crime, black on black crime. People who live near each other, black people, kill each other. Same as whites. 80% of white people are killed by white people. True. Because of proximity.
Very true.
It's the same thing with black people. But that happens in every single neighborhood. But that doesn't, again, I'm not saying that's not important that those kids died, but it's a different movement.
What the hell was just happened there? So just to be clear, Don Lemon's insisting that Terry Crews, who believes that everyone's life matters and we shouldn't judge people by the color of their skin, that Terry Crews should not be talking about other issues in the black community that would actually impact black lives, the destruction of the family, judging people by their character and not the color of their skin, not painting all white people as bad. So Terry Crews actually cares about things that would improve the lot of large swaths of the black community in America. Don Lemon says, no, that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's about police brutality, so you should shut your hole, Terry. So then Terry counters with a perfectly logical argument like, really, Don? Because if you go to Black Lives Matter's own website, Black Lives Matter says what they're about, and it's not all about police brutality. No, Terry. Don, again, the dumbest guy in media, has to stop Terry because Terry's saying something that's actually true. So they're all about stopping police brutality. Here's, by the way, a quick, remember this one? This is an actual Black Lives Matter rally. Here's two of them. Yeah. Remember this? That's their rally. That's not mine. Paula and Joe did not edit that. Drew's not going to throw in extra effects at the end when we do the video afterwards. That's not what's happening here. That's their rally, Black Lives Matter. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now? Pigs in a blanket. Pigs referring to cops, disgustingly. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. That's their rally. That's not mine. That's not the Dan Bongino show rally. But we're not allowed to talk about that either because Don Lemon said, no. Black Lives Matter is only about police reform, and shame on you, Terry, for putting out a positive message, trying to get people to put aside grievances and put aside tendencies to stereotype people and to encourage people to be loving and caring to one another despite the color of their skin. God forbid Terry talks about that. Don Lemon's got to get him back on point. It's all about the police.
Yeah.
It's not about black kids dying. It's not about the 6-year-old running down the street where we still don't know where she went because her daddy's not there. Don't talk about that. Folks, you see how I'm tying this all in together? It's important you understand this. The Democrats always need their shock troops on the front line to keep you all distracted. But to keep you distracted from their overt, deadly failures. What's going on right now in Lifetime, people are dying in Democrat-run cities, run exclusively by Democrats. The Democrats need the shock troops on the front line to keep you preoccupied with a message that has nothing to do with that. Law and order is traditionally a Republican message. The police are a convenient target. They stick BLM on the front line, Black Lives Matter, to get you distracted and talk about dead cops and wanting them now. Don Lemon, liberal activist, one of the 10 dumbest guys in media, is there to propagandize you as well. Terry Crews, how dare you talk about all lives matter? Anything like that. Are you kidding me? We're not going to talk about that. Destruction of the black family. Really, Don? Really? Because Terry Crews says, well, if you go to their website, that's not even what they say they're about, Don. You don't believe me? Here's their web, blacklivesmatter.com. You feel free to go there yourself. Scroll about 3/4 of the way down. It's their website. Again, not mine, just like their, what do we want dead cops rally. BlackLivesMatter.com, quote, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Really? So you're committed to the destruction of the nuclear family in exchange for Marxist ideas like the Hillary Clinton, it takes a village? No, it takes a good mom and dad. Village is nice. I live in a nice town. Good people. We get along. A lot of political differences. No problems here. We vote here. That's how we do things. No one comes to your front door and attacks you here. The village is nice. But I teach my kids, not the village. You think Terry Crews, who looked at that, may have been I can't speak for Terry. And I'm sure by mentioning his name, I'm sure he'll be boycotted into the phantom zone. God forbid we speak the truth. But good for Terry for saying Black Lives Matter is about police reform. That's interesting because I looked up their website and they seem to be really against this whole nuclear family thing. The whole nuclear family that leads to stable lives and healthy and productive young children who become healthy and productive young adults later. I'm not really interested in throwing that away for the whole collective Marxist stuff. Don Lemon doesn't want to talk about that either. Now you're probably like, Dan, come on. It's their website. They're not really Marxists talking about the collective. That's Marxist terminology. Getting rid of individual liberty and freedom and big R God-given rights and scuttling that, throwing that aside for collective rights. There's no such thing as collective rights. You understand that, right? There are individual rights. There's no such thing as collective rights. You can't treat people collectively equally without treating them unequally. Dan, that doesn't make sense. Think about it. If you have a collective right to something basic, food, you say, oh, that sounds fair. Dan, there's definitely a collective right to food. There is? You sure about that? So if I don't want to work, I get to steal your food? Oh, I didn't think that through. Of course you didn't. You're a liberal. There's no collective right to food. There's an individual right to work and earn income from it in a free society. But you have a right to nothing other than that. Speaking in the economy, you don't have the right to other people's property. There are no collective rights. There are individual rights. That's Marxist terminology. So you're probably saying, Dan, Black Lives Matter is not Marxist. That was just a poor use of language. Okay, don't listen to me. Here's one of the co-founders again, in response to a question about if she is in fact a Marxist in her group and has Marxist ideological leanings. Here's one of the co-founders of the group telling you in her own words that they are in fact community organizers and Marxists. Don't take it from me, take it from her.
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theory.
Don't worry, Don Lemon. It's all about the cops, isn't it? Or maybe, Don, you could get out of your intellectual prison you're in. Maybe you would just listen to Black Lives Matter in their own words. This isn't about the police. That's a distraction to keep you distracted from the failures of far-left ideology in the city while they destroy it and rebuild it in Marxist fashion.
You just heard Dan Bongino.